Oh no, I gotta go. I'm good. How about you?
Well, welcome everybody. We're going to get started. If you are standing in the back, please come and find a little seat. Hi, friends and neighbors and visitors to Paradise. We're so glad that you could be here. My name is Casey Taylor. I'm actually the superintendent and founder of the Chief Charter School in Paradise and Chico. But my side hustle is sitting on the board of the Rebuild Paradise Foundation, which I am so proud to do. I actually got to be on that founding board when we first started with a dream of Charles Brooks, our founder, who just wanted to help his community rebuild their homes and remove barriers. So right after the Tubbs fire in 2017, they created a Rebuild North Bay Foundation. And they came up and held our hand and helped us create Rebuild Paradise Foundation. And at that time, we're like, we're just going to see whatever is happening in our community that needs a barrier removed, and that's what we're going to do. So we were able to create a missing middle grant that helped the middle income with engineering costs and septic costs. We created a floor plan library that removed the barrier of getting building permits. And now we're focused on insurance. It's the new puzzle that we're trying to put together. So I just want to acknowledge our executive director, Jen Goodland, who's here in the front, and I'm proud of the work that she's doing. And also, thank Stacy Gallo, who's our project manager for the Rebuild Paradise Foundation. Also, we've got some committee members as part of Rebuild Foundation who are here also helping behind the scenes. We also want to thank our sponsors. We've got the North Valley Community Foundation, who's been so generous to us. Also, at the table, Rory is from the First Northern Bank, and he's been a very generous donor for us also. And then Assemblyman Gallagher's office also helped fund this event, so we're really happy to have them. So with that, I just want to say welcome, thank you for coming, and here is Jen Goodland's daughter.
Hi, my name is Maya. I'm Jen's daughter, and I'm just here to introduce you to my mom. So, Jen has a background in dental hygiene and a deep heart for service. She never expected her journey would lead to community recovery work. After relocating to Paradise in 2019, she and her family lived for over 2 years in a burned-down lot in a travel trailer, slowly rebuilding both their home and their hope. That personal experience now fuels her leadership as Executive Director of Rebuild Paradise Foundation, a role she's held since 2021. Jenny is passionately dedicated to helping families return home, navigate insurance obstacles, create defensible space, and rebuild in ways that are safe and affordable. Her approach to recovery goes beyond construction. It's centered on people, resilience, and restoring a true sense of home. So with that, Jen Goodland.
And then joining Jen is Victor Joseph. So Victor Joseph is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Mercury General Corporation and serves on its board of directors. Mercury was founded in 1961 with a purpose to help customers prepare for and overcome life's unexpected challenges by providing comprehensive coverage options for auto, home, condo renters, and business insurance, as well as mechanical protection. Victor leads Mercury's operations, including product management, sales development, underwriting, technology, and claims. He joined Mercury in 2009 and has served appointed Chief Underwriting Officer in 2017, Chief Operating Officer in 2022, and President in 2024. Victor is also a member of the Board of Directors of the Insurance Institute for Business and Home Safety, that's IBHS, as independent nonprofit scientific research and communications organization focused on creating more resilient communities. He earned an MBA from UCLA, Anderson School of Management, and a bachelor's degree in economics from Harvard University. Please welcome Victor Joseph.
Thank you for being here. You want to check your mic? I think it's on.
Yep.
Okay, so Victor, I met about a year ago.
Yes, it was October last year.
Yes. We kind of took a chance and decided to invite an insurance company to Paradise, and his team is here that joined us. And I'll just never forget that day. I think as a community, we're all watching the insurance crisis happen, and we're frustrated at all the hard work we're doing, and it's not seeming to make a change, and no one's noticing. There's a lot of frustration, and born from that was this insurance company that I think thinks outside the box a little bit. And so, Victor, tell me about what you saw when you came to Paradise.
So we came back in October. There was a webinar that our team had attended in the summer, I believe, where they met you and other representatives of other communities. And we were invited to come up and see Paradise with a message that the community changed. So we made a trip in October, and I think we were really taken aback and surprised by the appearance of the town. Our team had come and visited after the fires, and the fires, up until this year, were the largest, the most severe event Mercury had ever had in its history. So for us, back in 2018, that was really a moment of us really seeing the need to understand wildfire highlighted on a level that was really unprecedented for us. And I think one of the things we learned in the fire in 2018, at least at Mercury, was the importance of mitigation, the importance of structural hardening, the importance of defensible space, and other things that can be done to really mitigate the risk. And when we came to Paradise and we started driving around, we were really shocked that house after house after house that was new had done so much work. And we kind of imagined, we had imagined until visiting Paradise what these homes would look like, the mitigated, well-constructed homes, and then all of a sudden we're seeing one after another. They're not just imagined, they're real. So we started, at one point I asked, I forgot who was driving, but I asked her to stop driving so I could get out of the car and wanted to start knocking on doors and just walking around, because it was really kind of something to see how intentional the work was. And one of the big clues to us is when you see that last section of fence that connects to the home, and you have wood, and then all of a sudden it's this metal 5-foot section, you know that they're really intentional about why they did that with wildfire. We don't see that in most parts of California. So we started knocking on doors and seeing that a lot of people were with the FAIR plan, and that a lot of the residents were, I think, somewhat disheartened that they had done all this work, but they were still with the FAIR plan, they had limited coverage, maybe they felt they were paying quite a bit more than what we could offer. So we saw an opportunity that, at least with the mitigated homes, could we really lean in and start to take a little bit of a risk and give people, I think, a little bit of a message that if you make these investments, you do these things, companies like Mercury, more of the market is going to pay attention to that. We're going to provide some credits for that. We're going to provide our product. We're going to take more of a chance and start to rebuild a kind of a footprint, a presence in Paradise.
And I'll never forget this, because what it felt like in the car was you pointing, oh, I'm sure that house, and that house, and that house. And I didn't know that was going to happen that day. I'm like, okay, this is great. I think it wasn't just the homes. You made a comment as to there's these layers. What were the layers you were seeing beyond what the homeowner was doing?
So when we look at wildfire, we can start kind of from either direction, but we start with the home itself. We look at the actual structure. Okay, so you look at the structure of the house, it looks fantastic. You can kind of get close up to it, see that they've done all the right things. Then you zoom out a little bit, look at that defensible space, and we really focus on the 0 to 5 feet. We're very fixated on that because embers are what we're mostly concerned about. But then as you look a little bit further out, you see the neighbors. Okay, they've done some of the same work as well. And when it comes to wildfire, we're thinking about a disease that's going to spread through the community. So the neighbors have done the right thing, and they kind of built a bubble of protection. Then you zoom out a little bit further, and you start to see things that have happened with the utilities, with the roads, with the general awareness. And we went to lunch at a restaurant where they had wildfire preparedness flyers, and I remember seeing road signs and even billboards, and it just started to feel like there was this collective awareness around wildfire that was beyond what we've seen almost anywhere else in California. And you look at all that and say, hey, if we can't provide insurance here, then I'm not sure that there's really anywhere we can insure, because this should be a model for what's possible. There's also the broader fuel management, I would say. I don't want to discount that, but a lot of work done around Paradise. I think to thin out things and to remove a lot of dead trees as well, a lot of dead vegetation. So that factors into our decision making as well.
I think you also gave me a perspective I was very unaware of. I think, often I think of us as the residents and the insurance company butting heads, right? I think I started to learn it's actually a partnership. Because I heard their side and some of their frustrations, and one that I didn't know was, why can Mercury come here and only write X amount of policies, even though there are hundreds of homeowners doing the right thing? So can you talk about why you can only write so many policies in one area?
Yeah, so it relates to how you diversify risk. It's sort of like if you're thinking about investing, you don't want to put all your investments in a single stock, because if something happens with that stock, or something happens in one town, and you've insured all the homes in the town, you're going to have a big problem. The most important thing for an insurance company is solvency. We have to make sure that we have sufficient money set aside to pay for claims. And using Paradise as an example, we have about $300 or so million worth of property insured in Paradise right now. For that $300 million worth of property, we collect $300,000 in revenue a year. So if you start to think about what could happen if the town takes a big hit and you have $300 million of money that you have to pay out off a base of $300,000 a year that you're collecting, it's pretty challenging to make the math work. So as an insurance company, you really have to spread out where you're writing customers across the state. You have to diversify. And it means that for a company of our size, we could probably write, I think we'll be able to write more than that longer term, but to have a healthy market for the residents, you need a number of insurance companies to each take slivers of a community. Property insurance is very dangerous if you go all in on a community. You would start to get your credit, you would get dinged for it. You would get penalized for that by others who audit you and understand how you're running your business. So it's just not something we can do if we want to make sure we can pay claims. In Los Angeles, when the fires happened, we lost we insure about 700,000 homes in California. We lost about 700, and that was over $2 billion in losses for us. So that is and we collect about a little over $1 billion in revenue a year. So these are just some examples to give you an idea of how a very small amount of loss on property insurance, in terms of the customer count, can have a dramatic impact financially based off what we're insuring.
So when you came in, I think for almost a year, we were able to kind of open the door and write some policies in Paradise. And like what I hear you saying is that we need other insurers, AAA, CIG, I think you might be in here, to like put their stake in the game.
Yes, and I talked to someone from CSA about that, and he's been fighting the good fight internally in his organization. But I think you need a number of companies to really have success in a community. I do think Mercury will be able to write more eventually. We have a lot more reinsurance than we did a year ago. I think there are other things that we'll be able to work on that will help, but you really, I think as a consumer, it's always good to have choices. It's always good to have more competition. It helps with pricing, it helps with quality. So we'd really like to see, I know it sounds strange, you don't hear many industries talk this way. We want to see more competition in Paradise.
And I think this might be a tough question for you to get the perspective. It's actually very important for insurance companies to be able to have rate increases. Can you give us some information about that?
So for property insurance, companies typically shoot for a single-digit profit margin. You might be shooting to make 8% on the money that you're bringing in. And you need that profit margin to build capital. You need to build a reserve over time to pay for these really big catastrophes. So when you have the effects of inflation, inflation can come because materials are getting more expensive, labor is getting more expensive, we think there are going to be more fires. All these things put upward pressure on costs. And insurance companies, because they target a fairly small margin, once those cost impacts are hitting you, you have to try to turn around pretty quickly and seek for additional rate. We also pay a lot of money for reinsurance. We pay over $200 million a year for our insurance that protects us if there's a disaster. That's really helpful, but we also have to recoup that somehow. So that's an expense that has gone up dramatically for us, and that ends up going into our rates as well.
And I do know, as you came into the market here, you did make the decision to tie in auto insurance. Can you explain more about why that decision was made?
So auto insurance is very different from property insurance, in that auto insurance is not something where you have a major event and all of a sudden a bunch of cars are lost. It doesn't happen at the same scale and magnitude as property insurance. So it goes back a little bit to diversification, in that if we're able to generate revenue from different sources that aren't likely to have the same event affect them, we can spread out more and we can grow more than we otherwise would. It's just a simple principle of diversification.
And I think the team as a whole was very intentional about homeowners who were getting insurance here. And one of the criteria was to remove them off of the FAIR plan. Is that a goal, like as a whole company, that you're working towards?
I think that could be an outcome of something that we're more focused on. I think the main goal would be, with homes and communities that have invested in mitigation, we want to be the best priced and have the most availability for them. And if that means they move off a FAIR plan, or maybe they're pulled away from our friends at CSAA, then that's all good with us. Maybe not with them, but the pie is very big here, I would say. And our hope is that by doing these things, we encourage the pie to grow. If homeowners and communities see that there's more availability, there are more discounts, in the face of these increasing rates, there's more discounts that offset that, then people may be more likely to make that decision, and maybe as a company we have to take some more risks in steepening those discounts even further. I would say that our discounts now on the wildfire premium are up to 40%, which is pretty steep, but we may have to go further with that. It's something I'll say that the industry is grappling with a little bit, in that we still don't know that we have enough information to really have confidence about where to set those discount levels. This is a unique situation in that I feel that we might be if we go too far with it, but enough people do it, then it may actually become warranted. Because again, it's sort of like you're building immunity within these communities. The more people that do it, the more likely that 40% may be enough, and maybe you can go even further. So I think us being a California company, most of us live here, this is a sort of a personal problem for us. And we're willing to take some bets and maybe go a little bit too steep on these discounts if it supports the right behaviors and the right investments in the communities.
And just from the insurer's perspective, what advice would you give a homeowner to help them feel empowered about insurance?
So I think one thing I would say, because we had a bit of extra time this morning because of when our flight came in, we drove around town a little bit and we looked at some of our customers here. We're getting some rate increases with a recent rate increase that we took. And what we noticed with some of them was the rate increase was going up by a little bit more than I think it probably should have, because some of the work that homeowners had done wasn't being baked in maybe well enough into the discounts that they should get. So what I would say with that is, and we need to talk with our agents a little bit more about this and encourage this, be really forthcoming and detailed in all the work that you're doing from a mitigation standpoint to make sure that your insurance company is not missing that. And I think that's something that we have to have a meeting on internally when we go back to LA is, let's kind of double check a lot of these homes here and make sure that we're giving them everything that they deserve so that they're getting the right credit. So I just think focus on mitigation, making it really clear what you're doing, and then making sure your agent is advocating for you the way that I know that they would, that makes a big difference.
Thank you. And is there anything else that you're like, I really want to get this across to the audience here?
Well, I think I think there are some more things that are coming in terms of the rates that will be challenging, and I think that mitigation and getting the whole community engaged is the best way to get out of that. It's to avoid further increases in costs that I believe are coming.
All right. Thank you so much, Victor. All right. This one on? Okay, she said he gave me like the most big words to pronounce here, so bear with me. I have to say Tuolumne. Okay, Chief Finney began his career with CAL FIRE in 1998 as a seasonal firefighter in the Tuolumne Calvert unit and has since served in multiple units across the state. Over the years, he has worked in both CAL FIRE Schedule A and B programs, served as a helipad captain on Copter 205 in China, and spent several years as a training officer helping prepare the next generation of local firefighters. For more than 45 years, the Butte unit has been his home, and he now serves as assistant chief overseeing daily operations for the Northern Division. Chief Finney manages 4 battalions that provide fire protection and emergency services to the town of Paradise, as well as 9 other communities throughout northern Butte County. He is a qualified division supervisor and has been deployed to some of California's most devastating wildfires, including the Camp Fire, Dixie, North Complex Fire, and last year's Park Fire. Beyond emergency response, Chief Finney is certified state fire instructor and a long-time team leader with the Butte County Intercity Rescue Group, with nearly 2 decades of experience responding to major incidents, including the Montecito mudslides following the 2018 Thompson Fire. He is also deeply engaged in collaborative fire prevention efforts, working closely with local cooperatives, agencies, and community groups on fuels reduction and wildfire mitigation projects throughout the North Division. These partnerships have supported proactive, community-driven strategies that are making a real impact on the ground. Chief Finney is especially proud of the commitment shown by residents and stakeholders who are not only aware of wildfire risk, but who are also stepping up and doing the work to make their communities safer, more resilient, and better prepared. Please welcome Chief Finney. I got to meet Chief Finney for the first time last year at a speaking event here. He was here for something else, and I just want to say he is one of the most approachable people I've ever met. So please come and ask him questions. He has so much boots on the ground experience, a phenomenal person to be part of our community. Okay, so I think the heart of what we are trying to do here is really help people understand where we live. And if you live in Florida, you know you're going to live in an area that is very prone to hurricanes, right? Well, we live in an area that forever and always will be high fire hazard. And Chief, I want you to explain why. Why is this space, even with our loss of trees, why are we high fire hazard?
That's a great question. I appreciate everything you do too. I mean, that's a phenomenal effort you put forward. So, anybody that lives in California, Northern California, we're no stranger to fire. The biggest thing is fire, California is in a Mediterranean climate, so we live in a fire-adapted landscape. So this area has had fires throughout history. If you go back just a couple of weeks ago, we had those lightning busts that came through. We had several fires throughout the county, so if you can imagine if those fires burned all summer and all fall, cycle after cycle, we'd have, nature would be doing its job of really clearing those fuels out. So, I think living in this climate, living in this area, we have to be aware of that, respect it, but also learn how to adapt and live with it. So, the slide I have here is basically what we call our wildland fire triangle, right? Fuel weather topography. That is the hazard that we see here in Paradise and throughout most of California, right? We have fuels out there that provides the fuel for the fire, and homes are fuel. We have weather impacts, and then we also have the topography.
Yeah.
So I'll push through a few slides here. So when we talk about fuels, in the fire service, at least with CAL FIRE and most agencies, we look at live and dead fuels. So our dead fuels that we look at, we have 1 hour, 10 hour, 100 hour, 1,000 hour, 10,000 hour fuels. The slide you see above me here kind of breaks those down to different diameters, and what those fuels do is they react to weather, mainly humidity. So as the humidity drops, the summer goes on, those fuels become more receptive to spot fires and propagating fire and carrying fire. Really the quarter inch and below, and then the quarter to 1 inch or 10 hours are really the driving factor behind that. We also look at live fuel moisture. So here locally, we look at Manzanita. We have some cut sites throughout the county that we've been cutting on for years. And so we have, years of data to really look at that. And the reason we use Manzanita is it's a widely grown native plant to Northern California. And so it's a very predictable plant. And when we come out of the winter, we go into the green up, and we can get as high as 120% fuel moisture in that plant. As the summer prolongs, we get towards the end of summer, that'll drop down. When we get down to about 80%, that's what we call a critical fuel moisture. And that's when that Manzanita is readily available and will actually add to the fire's propagation. So the picture on your left up there is, that picture is, we did a project in Lower Cohasset the fall of 23. And that was the fuel model we were dealing with. So just 25 foot tall, decadent brush, you have Manzanita, Ceanothus, buckbrush, whitethorn, live oak, that just there was no fire history in there. So we went in, we did a prescribed fire project to reintroduce fire in there in a controlled manner. It was successful. Actually, that area, when the park fire happened last year, it hit that area, and it actually went out in a few areas of those grass burnings that we have. It didn't stop the fire completely. That was literally the first burn we had planned at many. Mother Nature, the fire beetles, of course. But the conditions are there. There's just a picture, Lower Magillium. You can see where the campfire basically was stopped on one side, and then the untouched forest on the other side. So really heavy fuels that have not been impacted. Mainly in Butte County, the upper Butte Creek watershed, the upper ends of the West Branch. That's really the last part of the weekend that has not been impacted by the wildfire. So I stole this off of Jen's website, thank you. But it kind of shows, it's probably hard to see, but it really shows some aerial photography. If you go to the website, you look at it closer, of Paradise and what it used to look like, 60, 70 years ago. And it was more rural, it was more ag, there was orchards, bigger spacing. And then as the town developed over the years, it became more populated, it became tougher to cut trees, for one reason or another, and then we ended up with really just an overstocked area that was really prime, obviously, and we saw it as well. So.
I think you said this to me so well, and when you are in Paradise now, current day, you said it actually looks more like what it's supposed to look like or used to look like. And that really changed my mind, thinking Paradise wasn't always just all pine trees. We were actually oaks and orchards long ago, and then we just let the trees keep growing and growing and growing. So I think that was such a good way to explain to me what we see now is a lot healthier.
Yeah, I would love to go back 3,000 years and see pictures, because I think that's really the native landscape that we all start striving to achieve. So if anybody has one, I'd love to see it. And then weather. Weather is the most variable factor we deal with in wildland firefighting. This picture here is at the upper Feather River watershed. So the little X on the bottom, just to the left of that is where Paradise is, but you can see the North Fork of the Feather River and how it extends up through Chester, into Quincy, and all the way out really to the 395 corridor near Honey Lake. What happens here locally during the day when the valley heats, all that air expands, as air warms, it expands, it pushes up those drainages, and then at night as it cools, we've probably heard the Jarbo Gap winds, but for some folks that are not from here, we get those down canyon winds. So the other thing that will happen is when we get a high pressure setup over the Four Corners, the Great Basin area, a low pressure off the coast of California, those pressures try to equalize, we get a north to northeast flow, those really dry, fast winds. So, really in this area we have fuels, we have the topography, and we have the weather.
And we can't change, we cannot change the wind or the topography.
The only thing we can control is the fuels. This picture here just kind of shows I believe this is from the fire this year, but the gentleman spoke earlier about that zone zero and that ember cast, and that's really what we see boots on the ground. Is, yeah, there's times we have that wall of fire, but many times it's that ember wash that comes and starts those fires in the little shrubbery out front or the lawn furniture or the deck, and every time you turn around there's a new fire, or it's on the roof in the valley or the peak or in the gutter. So all the work you're all doing and it's being is truly working. And this is just a picture kind of showing an overview of Paradise Magalia, the upper ridge area. Off to the right there, you can see that's the North Fork of the Feather River as it runs up. The West Branch is just off to the east of town, and then over on the west you have Butte Creek. So you really you've got two major drainages on both sides of the town, which not only influence the weather, but from a firefighting standpoint, it impacts how we can fight a fire. Right, topography gets in the way, you get bluffs, cliffs, or our dozers can't get down there, the hand crews can't get in there. So it really presents a challenge. So yeah, it's a fuel weather topography. Another picture of Butte Creek, beautiful area. This is postcard, you can see some of the trees, but it's growing back. I mean, we're 7 years almost post-fire, and we see it in our drainages. You know, we're 6, 7, 10 foot tall brush. So.
I always think it's like our, double-edged sword. It's like our duty, but also lends to our high hazard, right?
Yeah. And this was just I don't know if the video will play or not, but it was just to kind of drive home what we see on the ground. This is the park fire last year. This was taken from the Platte Mountain Lookout. So it was day 2 of the fire after it crossed Chupa Creek. The fire you see on the ridge, that's Musty Buck Ridge, so it was running up Mud Creek as well as Chupa Creek at the same time. But it was really a fuel and topography driven fire at that point. You know, it had some wind on it, some up canyon winds, but you had a well-established fire. The video played, you really have, you could see the smoke column really just turning. So it really had a lot of energy behind it.
So I think there's been some frustration as mapping comes out about why we are still considered high hazard. I hear this throughout the community. We lost all of our fuel. A fire will never happen again. And I think that's a myth. I want everyone to kind of shift their lens and not think that.
Yeah. No, it's so these two pictures here. One, so that the state of California, Cal Fire is required, this Office of State Fire Marshal is required by law to produce these fire hazard severity maps in not only the SRA, which is state responsibility areas, as well as LRA, which is local responsibility, which is Town of Paradise, City of Chico, Oroville. And this last year, when these new maps for the LRA came out, Paradise had been a very high fire severity zone since I believe 2008. So we had already been designated that. And really what that zone does is it drives land use planning and building codes. So Paradise was already in that cycle. But these maps now include parts of Chico, Oroville, eastern Oroville that are in that buoy environment that have that exposure. So to your point, yes, the fuels have been reduced, but these maps look forward 30 to 50 years. Because if all fuels reduction efforts stop, then the vegetation comes back and we're right back into that same cycle, right? So they look at the hazards, which again are the fuel weather and topography, which are going to be there. Like I said, we can change the fuel model we have out there, but it's labor intensive, it's expensive work. So as long as the grants are funded, you folks are doing that work around your homes, it's helping. But these maps have to look forward because it drives land use planning as well as building. So,
yes.
This one kind of dovetails, I think, into the next question.
So as we're long term, I think you already just answered this, but you said something else that really hit home to me. In the event of a fire, and you have a team with you, you explain which house you would choose to save. Can you explain to me more which house you would choose to save?
Yeah, and it's so to kind of take you into what we deal with, it's a chaotic event, right? Any type of fire environment, there's some chaos, right? We try to bring a little bit of organization to that chaos. We train our firefighters on how to basic triage structures. So we have some training, I'll show you a slide here shortly, but they have a mental checklist that they go through, but really at the end of the day, they have to make an educated decision on what they're gonna go and try to protect. Now, that leads you into the defensible space. Homes that have good defensible space, they have that zone 0 cleared, they have good access down the driveways, down the alleyways, down the roadways. That makes it easier for us to get in there. If we look down a long, narrow driveway that's down in a drainage, it's chock full of vegetation, then we got, high fire activity going on, it's gonna be very difficult for that engine company officer to commit to that. Now this picture here, this is looking across that road that's had some fuel reduction efforts thanks to the town. That's Honey Run Road, so just above that. But you can see they've got good defensible space. They still have trees on their property, but they've done a great job of providing that. So, an engine in an area like this, one engine with 3 people on it can protect 3, 4, or 5 homes. In an area that doesn't have that kind of defensible space, one engine per house, well, we run out of fire engines very fast. So we're always behind the curve on personnel and apparatus to protect that. So we, like I said, we make an educated decision at that point based on the fire environment, access, what kind of building construction it is, what kind of fuels are around the house, and then we end up making a decision on what we can do. Our 3 main objectives are to protect life, property, and environment in that order. So that's, we try to get ahead of the fire. We give evacuation warnings along with law enforcement. They're the ones that enact those. We give them the recommendation. And then we give the orders for people to leave. And that way we can not have to focus so much on protecting life, but we can protect your property and then the environment as well. So.
Yeah, I think you said it's not just that the home might be, more likely to save, but it's also extraordinarily dangerous if you're seen in situations where it's heavy fuels, right?
Yeah. We have no problem doing it, but when it's, the fuel break you have there at the bottom, if there was a house in the middle, that's going to make it very difficult for us to try to protect those homes. So that's kind of a bomb there. There was another picture, I think this is over down off Valley View, Red Bud area, but there's some new construction, but it shows a good effort to fuels reduction, obviously post-fire, and then, defensible space around the homes. There'll be more of that today. Good zone 0, good space.
Yeah, but let's stop here for just a second, because you're going to hear this with every speaker, and this is a big message that you need to hear today. What can homeowners do? What are steps homeowners can do to reduce their risk? They can't change the wind, right? They cannot change the topography, but how can a person in this room, what can they do?
It's removing the fuel. And we all love our plants. I'm with you 100%. I love Japanese maple. I love them all. But we have to be smart on how we do that. Like I said earlier, I've been to the park, the JC, the North Complex, the Silmar Fireman in LA. There was an offshore wind event, Santa Ana wind event, and it was at Embercast that ended up getting a lot of these homes. So I think if you can focus on that zone 0 first and then work outwards from the home there, that's really the best thing you can do to give yourself a chance, along with the updated Butte building codes, non-combustible roof, siding, decking, the vents on the gable end of your home, as well as the eaves, are all going to improve your chance of your home surviving that fire.
What is zone 0?
The first 5 feet.
The first 5 feet where?
From the house out.
Okay,
Yeah,
I just
so-
want everyone to understand that word. Zone 0 is not going to go away. So I want everyone to have a deep understanding. When you hear zone 0, it's not talking about the zones in our community, like our evacuation zones. It's talking about that first 5 feet next to your house needs to have nothing combustible in there, no plants, no mulch, nothing that can burn.
Correct, yeah.
Is there anything else any misconceptions? Anything else? Do you want to go over your last slide here?
No, we talked about
Okay.
that. That's the acronym we use. We love acronyms in the fire service. That's just one more SFACs for when we triage structures. So, no, my hat's off to all the community members here, the work you're putting in, the Fire Safe Council, SPI, CAL FIRE, the Forest Service, the private contractors. All the work is paying off. I've been in the fire service since 1998, and a lot of this really didn't happen. We did our defensible space inspections, but it was, more for us to protect the home. Now the insurance companies are getting involved because there's a huge financial loss to it. So keep up the good work. It's paying off. I'm inside of Paradise. You know, I drive down the Skyway every day and look off, and you know, I see a real impact, and I think it's going to pay off for you in the future. So,
Thank you so much, Taylor, for all you do for our community. We appreciate you.
thank you.
Now we have Collette from the town of Paradise. She has served as the Recovery and Economic Development Director for the town of Paradise since July 2021. Prior to that time, she served as the assistant to the town manager with the town of Paradise since 2013. Ms. Curtis oversees recovery after the campfire, communications, economic development, legislative advocacy, and emergency operations for her town in her current role. And she is proud to serve the town of Paradise during the critical time to bring the community back together from the most destructive fire in California history. I like to joke that Collette has so much free time, she's got nothing going on. Prior to her time at the town, Collette worked in the private sector for E-Trade, Sun Microsystems, and Oracle. She attended the University of California, Berkeley, where she earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Political Science. Collette was the 2021 recipient of the John H. Nail Award from the League of California Cities for her work with the community in the aftermath of the campfire. Ms. Curtis lives in Chico with her 3 children. Please welcome Collette.
Hey, Collette. Thank you for coming. It should be on already. Is it on? Okay, there we go. I think we're good. Collette, we've gotten to work together quite a bit. We actually get confused. We get called the town all the time. We're a nonprofit, they are the town, they are government. And can you explain to me some of the basic things the town is responsible for?
Yes, only a few things. So the town, especially in recovery, so I'll talk mostly about recovery. So the town oversees recovery primarily of infrastructure, so roadways, public buildings, things like that. We also go after big government grants to do that work, to do repaving, and then to do big capital projects. And some of those projects that I oversee are things like the siren system, tree removal, home hardening, things like that. So a lot of things that we do that kind of dovetail with what Rebuild Paradise does, that has been an absolutely amazing partner in recovery, and we couldn't have done any of the things that we've done without the work that you have done. So thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to paint a picture of, either the puzzle pieces or the layers, right? So we're going from the out in, and the town plays a really big layer or role in why insurance is starting to look back at our community. And I think sometimes people don't realize the things you're doing in the background or the resources that you have. Can you explain some of the measures in place, like the evacuation zones, the early warning systems that you have put in since the campfire?
Absolutely. So I think from the town's perspective, we are always trying to reduce risk. And it's not always from an insurance perspective, but it's always from a lives and property perspective, right? We want to save people's lives, we want to save people's property in the event of disaster. And luckily, those measures often lend themselves to risk reduction when it comes to insurance as well. And so since the time of the fire, and even before that, we were really looking at everything we do through that lens. So some of the things that we've done since the fire, one actually predated the campfire. This came out of the fires in 2008, was we instituted evacuation zones throughout town. And hopefully you're all really familiar with that and what zone you live in. And if you're not, you can come to my table after this and we can find your zone. But these are evacuation zones to make sure that when there's an evacuation, you understand what area of town is being evacuated, if it's a small area or a large area or the whole town, and it facilitates evacuation through town more easily. That was instituted before the campfire, and we still use that system today. It's very useful, and we actually see other cities, and Butte County has instituted a really similar system because it works. Since the campfire, we also have installed 21 sirens. That is an redundant system. We have a lot of communication tools, and that is another one that we realized was necessary after the campfire. So we have those 21 sirens in town. We have those installed for about 2 years. We continue to test them and to make them as good as they can be. But with all of the new construction in town, it's hard to hear them inside because those new homes are just so well constructed. So we actually have in-home units that we're bringing out. So please see my table afterwards for information on that. But beyond those real safety things that we've been focused on, we also have really focused on saving lives and saving property at the same levels that Victor was talking about. I loved hearing him talk about kind of the different zones, the home, the community, the neighborhood, and the community. That's how we think about it too. And we have instituted a lot of things. Really, there are requirements for us that make the town safer. And one of those are enhanced building codes that we have here locally. So it's a good time to go into those.
Yes, I would love to hear about. Yeah, no.
Great. So, we'll hear, I think, from IBHS and the Wildfire Prepared Home Standard, and we've heard a lot about what those treatments are to homes that can make them hardened in the case of a wildfire. So we worked with IBHS and we heard the science. We listened to, the organizations that showed us that, wooden fences act like wicks that bring fires right to your home. We heard about how embers get into vents and under eaves, and we learned about that zone 0 and what that means to a property, whether it will survive a fire or not. And with all of that information, we as a community and our town council voted to have local building codes that actually exceed the wildland urban interface building codes that we're already required to follow because of where we live, because of the topography and the weather and all of those things. And those building codes actually mirror the wildfire prepared home standard that exists. And we did that because we want every single new home that is built in this community to be to the highest level of resilience that it can be for that home, to try to protect that home. And also, the more homes we get that are to that resilience standard, the more we will all be protected in the case of a wildfire. So that's where we start. Then the town looks at defensible space. We have gotten very serious about enforcing defensible space requirements in this community. So we have a team of inspectors that inspects every single property every single year. When we find homes or properties are out of compliance, we work with them until hopefully they come into compliance. And if they don't, we abate that property, meaning we enter the property and remove the weeds. It's a very serious thing for us. We take it very, very seriously. We've been lucky to receive grants to support us in those efforts. But really it's a testament to all of you and the community because this last year we achieved over 90% compliance with our defensible space requirements, which is incredible. We have reduced our risk by an amazing amount just over the last 3 years. When we started our every property, every year inspection routine, we were at about 50% compliance. So this has been a major, major increase in compliance, and that's making a big difference. Then of course we have our communities that our neighborhoods that are fire-wise communities. We support that wholeheartedly, and that is another wonderful effort that you're involved in. And then we also work with the Parks District and other entities that are working on a buffer project to slow wildfires down. So looking at the community level. We really look at it at every level within this community to reduce our risk for our residents and also to help with insurance.
Awesome. So I know I've heard this question, like my neighbor has an unkept lot, that impacts me, and it does. What do I do? I think, before maybe reporting them, maybe we look into our own fire-wise community or reach out to see how maybe that neighbor needs help. But if we're not able to reach them, is there anything I could do if my neighbor has a really overgrown weed lot with dead trees? What do I do?
Yeah, that is a great question. We get that question all the time. The first thing we say is always try to contact your neighbor if you can, but we know many times that's not possible. So in that case, the answer is report it to the town. So we have a mechanism to do that online. You can also come into our office and let us know. You can report it anonymously. But hopefully they are already on our radar because we do inspect every property every year. And when there are deficiencies, we re-inspect regularly to work with that property owner. But do let us know if somehow we've missed that, and we will make contact with that property owner. We have the ability to do that. We also have a map that's available on our website that will show you every property in town and their compliance status. So if the property is green, it means they are in compliance as of their latest inspection. If it's red, it means they are not. It's pretty simple. But that's a really good way to check and see, kind of how everything is looking. Also, if your neighbor is in the code enforcement process, meaning we have been working with them, they're not in compliance, and we are working with them, maybe even finding them, working towards abatement, that will show up in the system as well. It will show up as blue on our map, meaning that we are working with them in that process. You can be assured that we are working with them. Unfortunately, it does take a while because these are private properties. We can't just enter the property and do work. There is a legal process involved. But we take it very seriously, and so we really hope that if that comes up, usually let us know so we can make sure to focus on that property.
Awesome. And I know you guys partner with other entities in our community, and some people might not be aware of things happening in the background. Like, I think there's some tree removal happening. Can you explain some of that and who your partners are with that?
Yes, absolutely. So we applied in 2019 for a grant through FEMA to remove hazardous trees. So this was part of our effort over time to remove the hundreds of thousands of hazardous trees that were left in the wake of the campfire. Some of those were removed right away. Some of those were removed through the state program. You may remember happened a few years ago. And then this program is actually a voluntary program for people who have trees on their private property that could fall. Really, it's a fuels reduction program. That is the genesis of this funding because dead trees are a fire hazard. So we have that funding. We enrolled about 5,000 properties in that program, and we are working through it. We're about 80% complete, and we will have about 11,000 trees removed through that by the end of it. So unfortunately, it's no longer open. We had enrolled people about 2 years ago. But that's how long these projects take, unfortunately. We applied for it in 2019, and we are just now completing this project because of FEMA approval requirements. So but we're really excited about that. This has been a really long-term project for us to remove these trees. We know it's expensive, we know it's difficult, we know they're dangerous.
And are there any programs for homeowners currently, anything that the town does to support or has recently implemented that have helped homeowners? Like home hardening?
Oh, yes. Yes. So, one of the things that we found in recovery is most of the aid that's available through the federal or state government is for homes that were destroyed. There's not a lot of aid for homes that survived the fire. So we actually participated with FEMA in what they consider a pilot program that the state of California is now looking to implement on the state level, where there was funding available for existing homes to bring themselves more to a resilient standard. So implementing some of the things that you hear in the IDHS standards, some of those, improved windows, improved siding, improved roof materials sometimes. And so we had funding available we rolled out 100 properties, again, it was a pilot program, to partially fund, it was a 75-25 cost share, to help fund some of those hardening efforts. So we are now about 70% complete with those, which we're really proud of. We're so happy to be able to provide something to those homeowners who their homes survived the fire and really have not had a lot of other aid to this point. So we also feel that that's making a big effort because those homes, of course, were not built to the standards that are built now. So this is a small way that we can move them in a more resilient fashion, and also we are providing all that information to the state of California to hopefully inform their program that will be available on a wider level.
And what role do you think the homeowner plays in all of this with fire safety, which leads to insurability? It's both, right? What role does the homeowner have here?
Right. Well, there's a lot of personal responsibility in that. We at the town try our absolute best to provide all the resources that we can find. That's a huge part of my job, is looking for grants and other things, programs that are available for our community. But really it does begin and end with the homeowner, because that is, your property, you're there, hopefully maintaining it, and getting the information that you need to make the best decisions for you.
And is there anything else you would like to share that was missed?
I don't think so. I really appreciate the opportunity. It's wonderful to see such a great turnout today.
All right, thank you so much, Collette. understand, like, what is a Firewise community?
Starting at square one, what is a Firewise community? It is a way that people can work with their neighbors to collectively reduce their risk and improve wildfire safety. So it's all education-based. This is a national program, so at the national level, it's under the NFPA, or the National Wildfire Protection Association. In California, CAL FIRE has supported and taken over the management of it. And then in Butte County at the local level, it is supported by Butte County Fire Safety Council.
So back in, I think this was 2022, I think there was one in Magalia, maybe, one Firewise community.
One little one by Joe Cardoza, right in the middle. Raise your hand, Joe. Yep, Joe started our first Firewise community in Magalia. There were none in Paradise, and there were only 11 in Butte County at that time.
So we sat down together and I read through the website. It was confusing to me, but as we communicated what a Firewise community was, what was required, I realized it's everything we're already doing. So I'm like, our whole town, everybody's doing this. Everyone's pulling out a yard waste bin. Everybody's weed eating. We just need to be able to write this down on paper. Like, I just need to spell this out so that other people can do it. So Lauren handheld me through the process several years ago so we could get this done. And now, since then, how many Firewise communities are there now?
We have 42 in Butte County and about 19 in Paradise. So huge work.
I think there's probably some people sitting in this room that don't realize they're in a Firewise community. How do I know if I'm in one?
We made a beautiful new map just for this. So in the back over there by Callie, Jane, and Janice, we have the most updated Firewise maps for the whole county, and then a more zoomed in version on Paradise Ridge. But you can also, it's changing all the time, because hopefully after this event, you're all going to know me tomorrow. We'll have new communities forming. So we have a live interactive map on our Butte County Fire Safety Council website. So every time someone starts the process, you'll see a yellow shape form that is pending in progress. And then once it gets through the application process, it gets the certificate, we change it to green. And what you see up on the map there is all of our current and good standing communities.
Awesome. I think don't be intimidated by it because there's lots of people in front of you if you haven't started one, right?
Yeah, can we do a raise of hand if you are a Firewise USA leader? There's at least 7 to 10 in this room. So these people, I get to see them often, and they've really been those community leaders and ambassadors, and you too, raise your hand, who have made Firewise USA such a success in Paradise, but beyond for Butte County.
Yeah, I think the very first thing said start a committee. And I was like, oh gosh, I'm not doing that. So I just did it, and then I told my neighbors. So it is good to have partnership and communication with your neighbors. I don't want to deter from that, but don't let sometimes the wording prevent you from doing something good and right. So what is the requirement? Like, how many houses? Like, what is the requirement?
It's quite a flexible program, and so the minimum is just 8 homes within a community, so it really could be just your street. I think the smallest we have in Butte County is 12, I think, so really one neighborhood in Butte Valley, and the program allows all the way up to 2,500 homes, so we don't have anywhere near that big in Butte County, but we do have some Firewise communities that are entire ridges or areas. So all of Forest Branch is one Firewise community. All of Bear Creek is one Firewise community. What we're seeing in Paradise and Magalia is more of a patchwork, more at the neighborhood level. But it's really up to you of how big of a community you want to start. Maybe you know someone who's a couple miles away and they really want to help. So you make your boundary include both of your homes, as long as it's a continuous shape. You can't kind of cookie cutter around or cut out a neighbor you don't like. It's all one boundary.
And I think it's good too that you need to partner with your Fire Safety Council because often your community, you want it to butt up to another one, right?
Yes, that's a great point. Yes, ideally we are kind of connecting them so that one day we will have the whole town, everywhere is part of a Firewise community. So ultimately though, it is up to the resident. We can offer recommendations, but it's up to you what you want to take on and where that shape goes, but we have seen success kind of more strategic located communities.
So if I have a neighbor or several or empty lots that are unkept, is that I get kicked out from being in a fire-rise community?
The great thing is no, you will not be disqualified, your risk will not be too high to be in the program. Really, FireWise is the starting point, and you will not be removed or not be eligible based on unkept lots or properties that are out of compliance. Kind of, that's the double side of it. It almost doesn't matter how the properties start, but the goal collectively is, no matter where you're starting, to set goals and to work together to improve.
And the goals aren't crazy. Talk to me about the goals. Is this something that's very hard for a neighborhood to achieve?
So in terms of how much time, we hear that kind of, how much time does it take? All that is required, and there is a bit of investment to maintain your certificate. Once you get it, you're not done. You do have to do a little bit of annual work, but it's average of the whole group, and the minimum is 1 hour per house per year. And we are all doing a lot more than that in Butte County, especially here in Paradise. Like what you mentioned, people taking out their greenway bins, mowing their lawn, trimming up their bushes. All of that counts towards your FireWise investment. So just recording what you're already doing and then setting goals for education to meet new neighbors and just improve evacuation preparedness as well.
And I love, you submitted these pictures, and I think the cool thing about FireWise is that it kind of extends beyond just keeping your neighborhood clean. Obviously, you now have relationships. I think it lends to just like neighborhood safety, perhaps in general. But beyond that, is there like any benefit toward insurance?
There is. There is a guaranteed discount on your home insurance if you live within a FireWise USA community, if your policy covers fire. So if you are on the California Fair Plan, you would get this discount towards the Fair Plan, not your second policy, but that discount ranges between 2 and 10%. So that can be quite a significant chunk of savings. And once you are in the program and your address has been recorded as being in good standing, you should continue to get that discount every year on the policy.
Awesome. And if someone isn't getting their discount, is there something that can be done?
There is. We have had a year of learning and some challenges with this, but yes, there is a way to get that discount. If people are denied and they are within a in good standing community, and for whatever reason their insurance is not accepting their certificate or they're not recognizing their address, the way to get it done is to submit a complaint online to the California Department of Insurance, and they get it taken care of. I've seen it happen many times. I was kind of a guinea pig for this and had my own discount denied 4 times. As the leader, it's like, I made the map, here's the map, they're going to take it. So yes, putting in a complaint does get it done, and I have not heard of a case where people submitted a complaint and it did not result in getting a discount. And hopefully this decreases over time as we just continue to work together to iron out the challenges and make it a smoother process in the future.
Thank you for doing that in the background. I think sometimes people don't recognize the people in the background fighting for these like small nuances, and Lauren's one of those people. So I want you to know there's many others in our community like that. Is there anything else you would like to share about FireWise USA or Butte Fire Safe Council?
I reached out to the FireWise leaders before this and asked just for some testimonials and asked anyone who wanted to share something kind of what FireWise meant to them. And I got a poem, which I thought was very sweet and unexpected. And I didn't see him here today, but this is from Bill Hartley, who is one of the co-leaders at the Burnt Barn FireWise community in Lower Paradise. And he put these words together, and I want to share them. Called FireWise on the Ridge. On the ridge where dry winds blow, wildfire sparks and embers glow. But neighbors stand with steady will to guard our homes upon the hill. Together strong we lend a hand, protecting life and cherished land. With grazing goats and fuels decline, a safeguard built by neighbors' line.
defensive space, a shield of care, to slow fire's furious flare, reduce the fuel, defend the ground, in fire-wise ways our strength is found.
Awesome. I think that's all, but I want to encourage you all to, at the expo portion when we're done, or even during our break, and the Fire Safety Council can raise your hand over there. They have lots of information and they have a map. And I would encourage you to locate your home as you might be in a fire-based community and not realize that you get this map.
And if you're not, we would love to get your email address, and we will reach out to set up a meeting. You can come into our office, we can meet online, and we would be happy to give you more information. And if you want to do it, we will help you every step of the way through the process.
All right. Thank you so much, Lauren.